Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influential Oregonian, where we have discussions on Oregon history and academics and interview important people who have made history within or in the name of the Beaver State. I'm your host, Marcus Axford, from the show Welcome to Oregon, joined by my boon companions, archaeologist and Marquist of Salem, David Winkler, and Finn J.D. John of Offbeat Oregon. Gentlemen, welcome.
Oh, Marcus, and thank you for using my proper title.
It's great to be here.
I told you I was going to use it.
Marcus.
French aristocrat that you are.
Yeah. For anyone wondering what that's about, listen to our previous episode.
Yeah, that's right. Uh,
Our guest today is a really boring author and historian. Wait, I read that wrong. He's an author and historian for the town of Boring, Oregon, and a good friend and colleague. Introducing Bruce Haney.
Howdy.
Okay, so before we get into the formal interview, I have a couple of updates. Uh, First off, the website is now updated. I got it all cleaned up, and including because I've noticed that when I share the link to certain places like Discord and stuff, it would show up the old Welcome to Oregon like title and description, and I got excited because I learned about SEO settings and metadata and all that. So now it should come up when I share the link as the new description and everything. So, uh,
woohoo!
yeah.
Yay.
So now everything is really streamlined. If you go onto the website, excuse me, you'll be greeted with uh, the pictures of all of our shows. And if you click on the picture, it'll actually take you to their own page with the appropriate links and stuff. So, like, Offbeat Oregon is the only one who has this, but it actually goes to your website, Finn.
Ah,
So you click on it, it'll show the links for Spotify and Apple, and then I put in the description and, wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast, go search it. And then for yours, there's the website, and the only one that has a unique one is Don.
Oh,
getting photo bombed here.
The only other one that has a unique one is this one because we have YouTube for this one. But Welcome to Oregon will also get updated here soon when I start doing the live recordings for that as well. And I'm really excited. I've kind of talked with a couple people in my family about it and kind of described it as, imagine if I was doing a live sit down at a library or an auditorium or something. Plus, I'm also lazy and don't want to edit anything. So I'm really excited for that. Uh, by the time this episode comes out, I'll probably have everything else done with because I'm working on the store right now because we have our kind of sort of official logo that I've created. Uh, David, our good friend Kenny, his wife Melanie created uh, one of the assets that I use a lot for the Oregon Voices Network. And then what I did was I got the idea from doing the image for this show by stapling on our images onto the bottom. And so I got that idea for all of the shows too to do it that. And I love it. Works really great. And because of how Melanie did the Welcome to Oregon asset, where it's actually the image and not a square, it actually fits really great on a t-shirt. So I'm working on that. So,
oh, are we getting merch?
yes, we are getting merch.
It sounds like we're getting merch.
I'm honestly working hard, gonna be working hard on it. I'd like to hit Melanie up because she does digital assets and maybe one or two other people and kind of cut them in. Really helps promote local artists
Hmm.
and people who are kind of maybe struggling with money a little bit or even just want an extra buck or two in their pocket.
Yeah,
Although it's usually the former because of the times we live in at the moment.
yeah.
So yeah, I've got that taken care of, and then I again by the time this episode comes out, the newest episode of Welcome to Oregon will probably be out. As of recording on Saturday morning, I'm late because it's been a week, guys. It's been a long week.
All I'm hearing are excuses.
That's fine. That's fine. Perfectly fine. Well, I think that concludes my excuses. So how about we listen to your excuses, David?
Oh, I love giving excuses. Yeah, so for my update, at least, our big yearly public facing excavation is starting this week. That's going to be over at the Willamette University campus. We're continuing our work on the Methodist Mission boarding school. We're going to be continuing to search for the footprints of the original building. Again, as I've mentioned with previous episodes, this has been part of a series where we're digging for the, it was called the Indian Manual Labor Training School. And what that was is it was the first boarding school in the Willamette Valley. It was run by Jason Lee. And if you know anything about the history of boarding schools, it was not a great place. But this is history that has really been suppressed in the centuries and decades following. And it's something that my mentor, Kimberly Fitzgerald, has been working to sort of bring to light so that we can all address it together as a community.
Yeah, unfortunately, missionaries back then were really focused on, quote, taming the savage beast.
100%. And there
Um,
was, I forget who said the quote. It was part of the Manifest Destiny mindset that was to kill the Indian to save the man. And it's a truly horrific series of events, and some of it is still ongoing. A lot of this mindset has not gone away, and it's something that people need to start really thinking about and talking about.
which I always thought was interesting because in many ways, Native Americans far surpassed the uh, I guess maybe technologies of the Europeans in terms of like they're surviving in the wilds with, not the same thing that the Europeans did. Um,
Well, and the thing about that is like we tend to think of civilization in terms of like a Western sort of framework. People have the technology that they need and that they want. And so it's almost like kind of comparing apples and oranges when you think about the needs of two different communities. And it's like, technology aside, people have the right to exist the way that they want to exist. And when this colonization was happening, you had people coming in and saying that your way of subsisting is not only wrong, it's demonic, and we need to do everything that we can to violently shift that towards our way of living.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, after that little ray of sunshine,
Also, me and
uh,
Marcus have a Dungeons and Dragons game, and that's been
ah,
Next
kind of
next
fun.
week, next
Next
week, I'm
week,
really, really
yes.
excited. And yes, the characters will be a little bit better developed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, Finn.
yeah, I've not got a whole lot to report. I discovered a really wonderful little booklet that was published in 1840 titled Hints to the Man About Town. And it's all about what to do when you have gotten yourself with your friends, gone out drinking and gotten severely intoxicated and gotten into a drunken riot or possibly gotten into a fight with some police officers and wake up the next morning with a black eye, maybe, and you've got to go into work and look like you're not a scruffy ruffian. So what do you
I've been
do?
enjoying those. Yes, I've been enjoying
Yeah,
those.
so
This sounds like the last Saturday we had together.
yeah, exactly, right? Now, if only I had had this book at that time, I could have avoided, getting fired for, or whatever it was that happened. I don't remember any of that day. Um, Blackout. Anyway, so yeah, I've been kind of working through that on the Penny Dreadful show, and it's been a lot of fun. There's 3 chapters. The first one is how to get rid of the black eye that you got when you got into a giant drunken brawl, or street fight or something like that, because the Blazers lost anyway. The second one is how to deal with hangovers and how to look like a baller without getting so drunk that you make a fool of yourself. It's very, very clearly from a different era. The third one is what to do when you have met a special someone who's accompanied you, young man about town, home for the evening and left you with a little medical souvenir to deal with the next morning.
I can't wait for
Is
that
that
one.
another black eye?
It could lead to one, I suppose. Yeah, it's quite spicy.
Yeah, that first one, like God, I I don't do well with medical stuff. I'm getting better as I get older. Like I just had my blood drawn recently, and out of like sheer like, oh, by the way, we're gonna do like a blood work on you, and I'm like, I wasn't expecting that, so I'm like shaking in the room, I'm like, huh. And then after it happened, I'm like, actually, that's not as bad as I. But we also, we also don't have straws being shoved into our arms anymore either. The needles are quite small.
Yeah.
But yeah, listening to some of it, I'm like. I'm thinking, Finn, I might actually have to stop.
The thumb stuff. I thought about putting a trigger warning on the
Oh,
thumb
that.
stuff because that was really hard
Oh,
to, like, hey, this is going to get intense for a little while. You might want to skip ahead to this time. That's another thing, though, that I figured out from this is that if people want to do that sort of thing, it's really helpful to have some way of differentiating. So I think I'm gonna turn up the bed music a little bit so that when I'm talking, there's bed music, so that if anybody wants to skip ahead to the end of whatever story I'm reading, it's easy to do. But anyway, shop talk. I'm a huge fan of dog fooding, though. Eating your own dog food, consuming your own product, because it comes at you when you're in a different headspace than what you would be in when you're creating it, and you can get some pretty good insights that way.
well, and it's funny you mentioned that because I finally got caught up listening to the Kimberly Moreland interview that we did, and then of course the Peter Dibble one that we just did. And when I'm sitting down and we're in the moment talking about it, I'm always in my head about, oh, I could have done that better. Oh, I messed up here. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, whatever. And then I go back and I go, actually, that was a pretty dang good interview. So my confidence is constantly like this.
Right on.
Of interviews.
Confidence is a
Probably get
confidence game.
underway.
I was gonna say, yeah, speaking of interviews, what a great segue.
Yeah.
Assuming you were finished, Finn.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, on
I'm
to
always Finnish.
Oh, I'm going to quit the podcast.
I'm out.
I used to work on a copy desk. I can't let a pun go by.
How did I not see that coming? How did I not come up with that?
Okay. Revenons à nos moutons, as the old medical student would say. Let's return to our muttons.
All right. Well, Bruce, it is good to finally have you here. I've known you for at least a year. I feel it's got to be like 2 years. And we've always made plans to meet up, and it just never happened. So I'm really excited to at least be sitting down at the digital table with you to do this. So we're going to kick off with our traditional first question. Are you a native Oregonian? And if not, where did your journey begin and how did it lead you here?
I am a native Oregonian, Southeast Portland kid. No.
What part of Southeast Portland, Bruce?
Various, always around Powell Boulevard, either
Okay,
29th
cool.
and Powell or 174th and Powell.
Yeah,
Almost Gresham, but still Portland.
I was in that neighborhood during my high school years. We moved out from Washington County, and I think it was like 47th, and just off of Hawthorne was the main one. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Love
Yeah.
Southeast Portland. Some of my favorite record stores are out there.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Walking distance from,
Mm,
long walking distance from my house.
yep.
Yeah. I lived near Clinton Street Theater too when I was a teenager, so I
Ah,
could go
Nice.
see Rocky Horror every Saturday.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I funny you say that. We just recently rewatched Fern Gully, and I thought to myself, I can't remember if they were kind of around the same time, but I swear when they cast Tim Curry for that, they're like, "So can we just get more Rocky Horror from you, like as Hexus?"
That's like a 20-year difference between those two
Yeah.
movies.
Is it? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
because Rocky Horror was like the early mid 70s.
Yeah.
Okay,
I want to
okay,
say
And then Fern,
75.
okay.
yeah. And then Fern Gully would have been like early mid 90s.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I couldn't remember if Rocky Horror was 80s or not. But yeah. So, Bruce, you are an author and historian. Um, how many books have you written?
Three local history books.
Three local.
Yeah.
Are they all on the town of Boring?
Nope. The first one's Boring, Eccentric Tales of Boring, Oregon. And when I wrote that book, I found all these moonshiners operating in Boring. So I thought when it was time to write another book, I wonder if I looked into moonshiners outside of Boring, maybe there'd be enough for a whole book. And oh yeah, there's so I could write volumes on all the people that are operating moonshine stills in Oregon. And so that led to Oregon Moonshine, my second book.
Was that during I mean it probably covers it anyway, but was
Mhm.
that when they were operating during Prohibition or kind of at all times?
All times. The way I explain it is, if you're making liquor and not paying the tax man, you're making moonshine.
yeah. I
So
was I
that's
was looking at this a little while ago. I can't remember what. Maybe I was. Maybe I don't know, Bruce. It might have been something you were doing, but it occurred to me that the way that prohibition was rolled back in Oregon, it was like, they couldn't, there was heavily taxed. You couldn't sell it on Sunday. You had to buy a bottle and bring it to the tavern to drink it. It seems like a bunch of regulations designed to protect the jobs of organized crime characters to keep the moonshine, market open.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. They cover that pretty well, like in the Portland area in that book, Prohibition or Scandals During Prohibition.
That
The
was it.
JD
That was
JD
it. J.D.
Chandler and
Chandler's book.
uh,
Yeah. And Teresa
Teresa
Kennedy.
Kennedy Dupay.
Teresa, oh yeah. Teresa Griffin Kennedy Dupay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
That
was
was a book.
listening. I was
Yeah,
listening
I
to you
gave a
talk
shout
about.
out to that book, and I forgot Teresa's last name last
Yeah,
time, which was kind of embarrassing. But yeah, yeah, totally.
she's one of those two. Her and her husband are like the only authors I know out this way. So I'm like, I know the name. I'm yelling at the podcast.
Yeah,
I've done that too. Like I was at I mean this was a while ago, like probably midwinter, but I was at the Barnes and Noble in Salem, and I always like going through the local book sections because I'm always interested to see if I know any of the authors personally. And sure enough, I look at a couple names and I go, I know you. Actually, in fact, one of the books was oh my God, Marilyn Morton, who when I was going to do the Independence Ghost Walk last October before my voice got shut down from COVID, she was the coordinator. Or is the coordinator for that. So I kind of got excited, like, oh, I know you. I've been in your house.
really, Marcus. Barnes and Noble. I'm a book bin man, an
Is
escape
it,
fiction man to the
is,
day I die.
is it shameful to tell you that my favorite Barnes and Noble is the Bend one?
Is it is it shameful to tell you that every time one of my book comes out, I go to Barnes and Noble to look at it on the shelf?
Shame.
That is
Shame on both of
awesome.
you.
heck
Awesome.
yeah.
No, it just validates like when I do stuff like that too. Like I think when I eventually get my freaking book out, I'm gonna do the same, I swear. Oh God, Bruce, there are so many questions to take. You've done such a lot of fascinating, interesting work. Why? Where do we go? Why boring specifically?
I work in that town.
Okay.
So yeah, I worked there for about 10 years, and all of a sudden I started going, wonder what the history of these old buildings are. So I researched some of them. I started a Facebook group to post what I found. I thought maybe 50 people would care. And now that group's up to 4,500 people.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. And
Well,
that led to the town asking me to do speeches, and just everything grew from there.
Nice.
Boring is a big little town though, isn't it? Like 10 or 12,000 people.
It is, but I don't know where they're at. That's what the census record says, but where are they?
I always thought it was kind of like a twin sister city to Silverton, although I guess you can't say sister city because somebody's got the copyright on that or whatever.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, and we're not a city too. That's why we're a twinned community with Dole,
Ah,
Scotland. Yeah,
okay.
Ah,
we're an unincorporated area.
Right on.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, where did your love for history and writing history kind of come from or start?
It comes from boring, but I think it comes from I've always been obsessive. From Green Day when I was in '94 when they came out, I loved them and I had to know everything about them. Back then, dating myself, the only way to find information was, rock and roll magazines. And then eventually the internet, so then I'd research them further. And I've always been obsessed with a band or a movie or a director, and I have to find everything out about it. And eventually I focused that energy on boring.
Well,
that's a
that's awesome.
powerful tool for a historian.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely kindred spirits in that one. I always tell people who try to argue with me, like, I'm that person who sits on the couch while watching a movie as on my phone looking at dogs if you can hear them looking at the cast list, the history, what other things they've done while watching a movie. It annoys everybody in my household and everybody around me. But yes, I'm that kind of person, and I've actually gotten people to shut up.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
oh, never
literally
mind.
that
Uh,
meme of Ron Swanson going, I know more than you.
right on.
So Bruce, what specifically got you into writing? Is that something you've just always kind of done, or did it just kind of come from that, like, oh, I'm really interested in history, and this is just sort of how you get that out?
I was always interested in writing. As a young man, I did not have the discipline to do it. I did write screenplays, but I'd get them all to the point where it's like, okay, it's time to film. And then I'm like, oh, that seems really hard. And then I'd write another one. And then, I got a job, and, that took all my energy. So it took a while before I got back to writing. In my 20s, I wrote like a kind of Lovecraftian rip-off story.
Oh, you've got to share that with us.
Yeah. I fixed it up and it's on the Weekly Spooky podcast. I
Nice.
think it's called The House in the Woods. But then, yeah, always in school, I was always told, like, you have like naturally you can write. But I still never like turned in anything above a second draft when I was in school. Yeah. But yeah, the boring things, writing speeches and then
Mm,
writing the book. And now I write every day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
So
have. Oh, go ahead, Finn.
I was going to say, as a working historian, a working, a pop historian, I guess we could maybe say,
Mhm.
has there been a, a time when you dug into a story that you thought was going to be one thing and it turned out to be another thing and much more interesting? Like where something kind of exploded on you?
Um, I can't think of any examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
If one comes to you, do share because
I will.
those are the great moments, when you're
Yeah.
doing this kind of stuff.
And there is nothing too boring or too nerdy to share with us. So please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Au contraire, there are things that are too boring.
Right.
You shut your mouth. I'm going to come through this computer screen so
You
fast.
know what? Finn already did one.
I was going to say, David is like, I'm the only one whose hands are clean here. I'm
Et tu, Brute.
so, but Bruce, tell us about Dirt Babies.
Yeah. So Dirt Babies is my version of like the killer doll.
Mm.
So a Dirt Baby is you take like a nylon stocking, you put dirt in it, put seeds in it, put googly eyes, and it's like a kid's project. And you put water on it, eventually grows hair. And so I decided to make them killer creatures for. It was originally a story on the Weekly Spooky, and yeah, it's fun, and it takes place in the '90s. So the main girl's Kristen, who is into goth culture, teenager, starting to experiment with magic, and there's a asylum where this guy killed a bunch of people, and they use his grave for the dirt, and it's very convoluted,
Oh,
but
nice.
it's supposed to be.
I haven't seen it yet. So I've just seen it on Facebook and here and there, and I'm like, oh, Bruce has got a new one out. It doesn't sound like history, but I'll have to check it out. Anyway, I haven't gotten my copy yet, so.
All right.
A couple of follow-ups to that. One, that's the second time you've mentioned the Weekly Spooky. Is that a show that you're involved in?
Yeah, it's this guy in Ohio, a guy named Enrique Couto. He also makes independent horror films. But yeah, they do a weekly episode of, somebody's short story. I've been submitting to it for a couple of years. I think I've had like 13 stories on there.
Wow.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I'm writing because I always do a novella in October, because that's like, that's the big time. That's when everybody listens. So
Yeah.
he'll pump out. It becomes
sure.
actually daily spooky in October. So right now I'm writing the sequel to Dirt Babies, Asylum of the Dirt Babies.
Nice.
Yeah.
So have you always been a big horror fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had an older sister that was way into horror.
Yeah.
And so horror is like, it is what movies are to me. That's all I watched as a kid. Like even Marcus, you mentioned Ferngullies. I never saw it.
Oh, really?
I was into adult fare so early. Like I never saw The Lion King. I never seen Hunchback of Notre Dame. Any of those '90s movies.
But
none of
that's
them.
like not horror, but God, that's a scary for a Disney movie. I mean,
That's true. That's true.
So like, I know there's a third one, but off the top of my head, two of my favorite Disney movies of all time are The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Great Mouse Detective. Can anybody
Yes.
sense a theme? Oh, The Black Cauldron. Can anybody sense a theme?
Horrific children's
They're
movies.
all dark, yeah. Like I was into I wasn't necessarily much of a slasher person, but at the same time,
No.
I loved Scream. It was actually Scream. All of them. I know some of them have highs and lows, but all of them in their own way have all contributed because it's this weird formula of it was kind of sort of making fun of horror tropes. It was kind of I think it's like kind of the first one who did that. And then they have the scary movies and stuff. But I know what you did last summer. I'm actually really excited that they're rebooting that. Horror movie. I love Stephen King. Just so much. Actually, you know what? Real quick, what is or a couple questions. What's your favorite scary movie?
Marcus, I want you to ask that question again, but just be a little bit creepier.
Hey there, Sydney. What's
much.
your favorite?
I think it is time to do the rest of this performance in a big fake Transylvanian accent.
Why, Finn, whatever do you mean?
This is how I normally talk now. I am selling cereal and counting 1, 2, 3, 4 beautiful bottles of Sir Robert Burnett's gin.
You guys are dorks.
I am Barney the vampire. Oh my God. Spy, we've got plenty of time to fill.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Should I answer the question?
Yes,
Please make us stop talking.
It changed, but today I'll say the Blair Witch Project.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Right on.
I'm a super fan of that franchise. I have even the young adult novels they put out because that movie
Really?
was so big, for 1 year before
Yeah.
the backlash that they put seven young adult novels, a couple dossiers, fake documentaries, three video games. I own all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, wasn't that like one of the first websites to promote a movie? It's like Space Jam and the Blair Witch Project, right?
Probably.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
the
and they're
opener of the ways in transmedia franchises. Yeah, I actually have a class that I do, which is like five transmedia franchises that you should know about. And I had to add Blair Witch to the lineup because I didn't want to ditch any of the other ones. We do let's see, we do Pride and Prejudice, the Cthulhu Mythos, Twilight, Star Trek, and Pokemon, and started off with the Blair Witch. But yeah, so I know what you're talking about, the
yeah,
dossiers and stuff. I've got a bunch of those things too.
that's cool. And the fake documentaries are amazing,
Uh-huh.
Mm.
and they're all on YouTube now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed when I found out that story wasn't real.
Yeah.
I guess me and the rest of America, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that whole hacking IMDb with the missing poster, that was a stroke of genius. But it's the kind of thing you could only do once.
Yeah.
Yep.
They've tried to bring it back a few times, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
No. But it's perfect for someone who's obsessed because it has its deep mythology, so you can
Mhm.
just dig into that thing.
Yeah.
I think
Is
it
that
came out at a
your
perfect time where it the internet wasn't quite developed yet, but you had the internet to kind of use. Nobody had this wealth of information like you do now. So it was this
Mhm.
weird, narrow in between where you could fool people easily, but still utilize like the internet and stuff. I'm sorry, David. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, and I was just going to ask if that was kind of your favorite thing about horror, because you had mentioned being a very like focused and almost obsessive kind of person.
Yeah.
So is that like something with the Cthulhu mythos where you can just really dig into it and like have a whole world there? Is that kind of your favorite element of a horror story?
Could be. I never
Yeah.
broke it down. I never thought about it. And I
Uh,
do love that, but I also love, I love Friday the 13th Part 2.
yeah.
I
Fair.
love all the aspects of horror.
Yeah. So this thing with dirt babies, that was the first time I had ever heard that term. So like it's a kid's like school craft project, but
Yeah.
how did you hear about that?
I made them in school when I was a kid.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Some
That's
areas call them turf babies. Is
Turf
another term for them.
babies.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
also known as haunted chia pets.
Yeah.
DIY
I call
Now
them
we're spoiling the book.
budget chia pets is what I call them.
No.
So my other question was, what movie has scared you the most?
You know, in theaters, probably the others.
Hmm.
That one really gets into you. And I saw it during the day, but you're in a theater, it's nice and dark, and
Yeah.
all that movie is dark because the kids are allergic to light. So when it was over and I went outside, I was like, oh my God, I'm so thankful for the light. But I love a good
Uh,
jump scare too, so I love paranormal activity movies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
a bunch of my students have recently been into a movie that I've never seen called Midsummer.
Oh,
Apparently,
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of a cult classic of some sort. And apparently, it's horror, but it's also really splattercore ish. I
Okay.
guess I haven't seen it, so I'm a little afraid to see it.
It's
But
a
have you?
movie I know I'll love, and so I just haven't watched it yet because I'm like, I got to be in the perfect mood,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna watch because I love his first movie, Hereditary.
Yeah.
Uh,
That one's there's a scene in that man is awful, and
Yeah.
he's so good at holding you there. Like this
Mhm.
horrible thing happened, we're just gonna feel it and feel it and feel it and feel it.
See, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm afraid is going to happen if I see
Yeah.
this movie. So
I'd say movie that has scared me the most, even as an adult, um, it's got to be Ghost Ship.
Mm,
Oh my God, that movie is terrifying.
Yeah, people like that movie. I kind of like that movie, but I don't like it as much as everyone else does.
Really?
I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't work for me because everyone I know loves that movie. I love the first two because they're all based on, or that's Dark Castle's the company, and they originally
mhm.
started making William Castle movies. They
Yeah,
did the House on Haunted Hill
the
and 13.
Tingler.
Yeah, but their remakes are awesome. The House on Haunted Hill and the 13 Ghosts are the ones I prefer.
Yeah,
Love
and
13 Ghosts. I'm excited for
as a
the
Vincent Price
series.
super fan, I am so
Yeah.
glad that you mentioned a couple
Oh
of my
yeah,
favorites.
yeah. Love Vincent Price.
Mm,
It's one of the things like me and my father bonded over.
yeah.
Like my brother and him had cars, and we had pop culture. So we had Vincent Price, and we had Happy Days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, what are you working on right now? Are you working on any more historical stuff right now, or are you more making the pivot into horror fiction?
Sort of both. I have what my next book's going to be about, but I just keep not getting to it because I keep working on these
Uh,
horror projects. But eventually, I'm writing a thing about saloons from like in
ooh,
Portland, 1870 to like maybe right after Prohibition, and it's going to be really following August Erickson,
okay.
who
Oh,
had the big.
that sounds like that's going to be really good.
Yeah, and I've had like so many hours of research into it, but I feel like I have a ton more because I
Mm.
got to go to the Oregon Historical Society. So I want to absorb everything about Erickson and try to prove if any of that stuff was real. Like the 654-foot bar, but you look at the fire maps and there's not that many. There's not that much feet there.
I think they must have counted all the little like the tables in that.
Yeah,
Hmm. They got the
But
square footage.
yeah, yeah. But
but I
yeah,
have
I mean, having Stuart Holbrook involved with any historical
yeah
enterprise just introduces that, how much of this is just,
yeah.
bull doo doo. I don't know if I'm allowed to drop the S bombs on this podcast yet.
Well, David
Um,
kind of already did last time,
Oh,
so if,
well,
Feel free to drop
yeah.
or plop.
I was gonna say,
He's he's
you
like, I mean, he has that one story where the number of, where the supposedly Bunko Kelly shanghaied a bunch of sailors out of the basement of a funeral parlor where they had been drinking formaldehyde, thinking that it was rye, and then they
yeah,
all like were half dead, and so he dragged them down to the waterfront and sold them to a ship, which he helpfully gives us the name of,
yeah.
and the
Never
Flying
reported.
Prince, and there's no such ship. There was no such thing, and the number of dead sailors went from 24 to 49 in between tellings, and it's just like,
Do we want to
Yeah.
this is
briefly,
fun.
for for the uninitiated, myself, do we want to briefly explain who this author is and then talk a little bit about Erickson, Bruce, since you've done all the research for it?
Stuart Holbrook. Ben probably knows more about him. I just know he's a writer in the 50s and 60s.
Mm.
Um, Talented. Sources are questionable.
Yeah.
Uh, when I was young, you always heard, if you can print the truth or the legend, print the legend. He was
Mm.
a big print the legend guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then this Erickson, who you've been doing the research for, is that anything you can drop that you're ready to talk about yet?
Yeah. So he had a bar in downtown Portland, the biggest bar. Supposedly that had four, well, it did. It had four entrances to it. So a
Mm.
classic story is, a guy was there, he got drunk, got kicked out of the bar, walks around the block, goes in,
Oh yeah.
gets kicked out of that bar, goes again, finally goes to the fourth one. The guy's gonna kick him out again. He's like, "Are you the bouncer at all the bars in Portland?" Uh, but he was a cool character. Like when Portland flooded, he was out there on a boat, selling booze from a boat. In the Oregon Moonshine book, I wrote about him getting mad. Not his fun story, but he got drunk, got mad at his wife, and His tenant came down and tried to stop it, so he ended up chasing him with a not an axe, but a cleaver. And the
Oh.
guy has to jump out the window. And then he starts shooting at his wife. Luckily, they both got away.
Hmm.
But then when the sheriff came, they found, all his illegal booze and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think it's like, I don't know his origin yet to see if it's a rags to riches stories, but it's definitely a riches to rags story because by the end of his life, he was in jail for something if he had like $200, he could have got out.
Oh.
And he
Yeah.
was so wealthy at one point. He had a big saloon here. He had a giant one in Astoria. He's the guy if you talk about saloons in Portland.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The Portland Astoria connection makes me wonder how deep his involvement was with the Shanghaiing scene. Um, have you
Mhm.
run into anything on that, Bruce?
I haven't, and I know. I feel like if I would, if there wasn't, I would have ran through it with what Bill is it? Not Bill Blaylock. It's,
Barney.
Barney.
Yeah, Barney
Barney.
Blaylock. Yeah.
Yeah, I had
Yeah,
a
that's
boss named
true.
Blaylock. Yeah, Barney Blaylock.
That guy knew everything about that topic.
Yeah, you know what's crazy too about him is he wrote a book about the boxers in Portland,
Yeah.
and he didn't find my story, the boring boxer.
The boring bruiser. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, that's true. He did. He had that prize fighting book.
yeah,
Huh.
which is great. He's another
That's
one of those guys I missed. Yeah, I never got to meet him. I never got to meet
yeah.
JD Chandler.
Yeah, the last 5 or 10 years have been rough in the local history
I was
community.
gonna say,
We've lost some people.
I didn't realize JD Chandler had passed away.
I was very
Yeah,
surprised. It must have. I think it might have been COVID. I don't really know, but he he seemed bright of eye and bushy of tail to me. And the next thing I know, I'm reading his obituary and going, "What the hell?"
That's such a shame. I thought, I'm gonna look him up and add him to the guest list, but dang,
I
that
wish. Yeah,
sucks.
he would have been a good one too.
mhm,
Mm.
All that
yeah,
oh, who yeah, it just occurred to me that there's Phil Stanford is another local historian that is very much. I mean, he and JD are kind of birds of a feather.
mhm, yeah. I'm lucky, they did do interviews and things. 'Cause I'm a local history nerd enough that like I go on YouTube and I look up all these dudes' names.
Uh-huh.
You as well.
Yeah, I remember you reached out to me and I was like, I got hold of it. Did you send me a book or did I can't
Yeah,
remember. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Did I send you one?
yeah,
Okay, good,
yep,
good.
yep,
'Cause
yep.
I wanted to make sure that I did my part of the exchange. But anyway, I was like, yeah, I was like reading it, and I hit that free Coldwell story. I'm like, oh my god, this
Yeah,
is gold,
yeah, and that was helpful, man.
so
Because you got
good.
that because you wrote your article about it and got it all over the state, and
Ah,
I saw a bunch of copies of Eccentric Tales move from it.
nice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I don't get statistics on Offbeat Oregon because it's hand coded and it just lives on my website. So I don't really see the traffic. And it's like, how Spotify keeps track of how many people are downloading and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I don't get any of that stuff. So I don't really know how many people I'm reaching with it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm glad it moved some books because I was like I
yeah,
was like, this is awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I've had that too, where I don't know who we're reaching, how far we're reaching. Um, uh, my best friend Kenny, our friend, me and David's friend Kenny, um, at his work, he was talking with one of his coworkers. This was a while ago, and they were talking about podcasts. And he was telling his coworker, he's like, "Oh yeah, you listening to good podcasts lately?" He's like, "Actually, I just recently picked this one up called Welcome to Oregon. Have you ever heard of it?
Nice.
It's by this guy Marcus. Guy, I can't remember his last name." And Kenny's like, "Axford." He's like, "How'd you know?" He's like, "That's my best friend." He's like, "What?" And he starts like hammering Kenny the question, "Do you do any of the history?" And Kenny's like, "No, no, no." Although we as a little bit of a spoiler, we have been in talks because he wants to do like stuff on the like gaming, comedy, entertainment side that we've been kind of brewing up some ideas that he can bring to the network. So just a little bit of something to look forward to there. Um, talking more about horror and macabre, we can bring that back here to Oregon. How much of Oregon's macabre history have you studied yourself?
I haven't figured out the keywords to find it. I really would like to write a book about, and I don't want to write a ghost book though. Those
Right,
exist,
right, right,
Mm.
you
right.
know. So I'm trying to find the stories that are true crime, but in a specific way, a way where you could look into it in more of a horror angle or something supernatural in a different way than ghosts.
That would be a project that I would definitely be on board to like co-write with you because there's so many stories that I have already knew
Yeah,
or found in research or whatever because I like macabre. I
yeah, yeah.
but I always say, as humans, we're prone to tragedy in some form or another. We're drawn to it like moths to a flame for some reason. Um,
Well, and it doesn't help that we are four ghouls on a podcast.
yes.
Yeah.
So there was an episode of Welcome to Oregon that feels to me like what we're talking about here. Actually, I mean there was some like serial killer type stuff, and there was some
Yes.
mysterious
Yes.
Oh, we could talk
aspects
about
to it.
Brutos, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um.
who my stepdad
Anyway,
had the
yeah, that would
misfortune of meeting while he was a prison guard at
uh,
OSB.
that would be a job that would probably take me right around the bend, having to hang out
Mm,
with people that had been incarcerated for horrible
yeah.
crimes,
Yeah.
like all shift. I
Yeah,
don't know how
like
they do it.
my dad was this weird type A personality who could get along with anybody, and it's like he's like, well, they're not your friends.
Yeah.
Uh,
One person I would have had to have hated to have dinner with, and
Yeah.
that's Jeffrey Dahmer. Um,
uh,
They
uh,
interview people in the documentaries by him too, where like his neighbor was given a sandwich by him. I
Hmm.
definitely wouldn't trust any food he gave me.
oh
oh
God.
no.
And then how much of that is true and how much of that is like, oh, I have a Dahmer story. It's
Right,
like
right.
how every Gen Xer in the Pacific Northwest has a Kurt Cobain story.
True.
My old boss used to say that there was a rumor running around that he and Diane Downs had a relationship, and he denied it. But
Hmm.
she was his mail delivery lady for a while.
Okay.
Anyway,
I
yeah,
had it.
that sounds like a book that I would love. I would just devour. I mean, that
Hmm.
would be awesome.
I smell another project
Yeah.
to add to my already long list.
Just what Bruce needs, another
Oh, we're
project.
so
Oh yeah.
busy.
That's what we all need is
I know, right?
but
Now,
the nice thing about the work we do is the fact that like it really doesn't actually because all of it's all connected.
Hmm.
So rather than like, oh, it's a new project, but it's you already have a lot of the existing material to it. It's like, oh, Bruce, hey, do you want to co-write a book together? Well, here's my pile.
no.
Put it in your pile, and and we can make something. So,
That's kind of how my because I have a book about Oddfellows too called North Portland Oddfellows,
Oh,
oh
right.
yes, yes.
and David Shearer, my co-authors, like fourth generation Oddfellow, and it was like, I love history, so I've done things with him. We've done um, beer tours because a lot of the old lodges became beer halls now.
Yeah.
So we got a bus and went between the two, a few of them, and it's like, oh, you have all this information. If we could take it out and I could put it into a book, and that's what we did. It was a lot of fun.
Right
Wow.
on.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. What's your current day job?
I work in auto wrecking.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
That's
kind of.
intense.
Assistant manager at a wrecking yard.
Nice.
B&R auto wrecking.
Oh,
It's a place
yeah.
that it always gets better. Like when I started there, it was an independent place, and I hated the boss, and it was awful for 10 years, and just like it just keeps getting better. It's actually I like working there now.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've gotten to the point too where I've been there long enough that I'm no longer the guy who doesn't know anything. I'm now the person everyone comes to. So now it feels good too. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the guy who knows how to do it all.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always look when every time I a one of the big wreckers, the semi wreckers, drives by me or I drive past it, I look and go, "Ooh, that's a lot of money."
Yeah.
That's like $800 just to come out and see what the problem is. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. It's weird how like your job becomes so important to you, especially when you're in, like in management. Because I see like a car hauler going with wrecked cars and it's not going to my yard. I'm like, who's getting those cars? Those are mine. Those should be mine. It should go to my yard.
How did you get into that job?
I didn't used to tell this story, but my dad just made me go to work there.
Cool.
Because it was weird, just working for because my dad worked there. My dad hasn't worked there for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just 18. I had no real goals in life. I didn't have any direction at that point. And he just said, "You're coming to work." And it's in Boring. And that was the first day I stepped foot in Boring.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah.
wow,
And the
that's actually
Yeah.
rest
really
was quite
cool.
literally history.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. We
Yeah.
have the Bruce superhero origin story.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can all kind of relate to being like, 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and not really knowing what we wanted to do,
Mhm.
and you just kind of you go through motions until you find something that really sparks you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really funny because, like, yeah, I talk about, our family business a little bit, and respectfully, it's held me back in a lot of ways, but I also look back and go, I don't know if I would have had that cadence for storytelling or the stories themselves had I not, worked the family yard maintenance business because, that's something where you've got all kinds of different clients and, you're sitting around with the old timers at lunchtime at the old restaurant and you're doing all this stuff that really makes you deeply connected with not just these people but your community and it stretches beyond so it's that is funny like I completely relate to what you're saying, Bruce.
Mhm.
What's your um favorite story or person?
About Boring, my favorite story is the boxing story, which we've talked a little bit about. So I should probably tell it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
hear it.
Um,
We all know it already, but nobody who's watching this does.
right. So Free Coldwell is a bully. He comes to town it's during the logging days, and he just starts picking fights with everybody. And he claims he's a prize fighter. And as far as I know, he is not. There's no Free Coldwell in any prize fighting records, any boxing records. I mean, there's no Free Coldwell in the census records. So who knows who he is? And so the town of Boring gets sick of this, and they hire a guy from who's training in Portland. He's not from Portland, but he's training there to come fight him. And he comes out and fights under the name Mr. Brusso because they don't want him to use his real name because it's a name people would know if you're into boxing. And they set up a little tiny rinky dink ring in their opera house, which is really just where they had dances. And they get a referee and everything. And they start the fight. Mr. Brusso, or Tommy Burns is his real name, pretends not to be as good as boxer as he is. So lets Free Coldwell get in some hits and even goes down one round. But like in the sixth round, um, Tommy Burns, Mr. Brusso, finally just pops him in the nose. And I think that's when he knew he was in trouble.
Oh, that tickles. No, don't. Okay, we're done
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he knew he was in trouble. And so the next time he gets punched in the stomach, he jumps out and goes, "I'm not getting back in the ring. You can't do that," which I don't think there's any rule against that.
That's
Um,
that's kind of encouraged in boxing.
yeah. Yeah. And my favorite thing is the town of Boring allegedly told him, Tommy Burns, "You can beat him up as much as you want, but don't kill him. We don't want to pay to bury him."
Oh boy.
I can
Yeah.
imagine too being in that ring and being this dude who's so cocky and thinks he can take on
Yeah.
anyone. And yeah, it's seemingly like, oh yeah, I told you I can beat this guy up. I can only imagine because you got to know with fighters, there is a moment where their entire demeanor changes and
Mhm.
gets more focused and serious. And I can only imagine him seeing Burns like start to actually get stanced up. Go, oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You start to notice all that scar tissue in the forehead.
Yeah.
Didn't Tommy Burns, like, wasn't he like the world champion in his weight class like a year after this thing happened?
Yep. Yeah, he
Wow.
became a world heavyweight champion.
Uh,
Well, the guy had one thing going for him. He's famous for getting beat up by
Yeah.
Tommy
Yeah.
Burns.
Imagine being like on your couch or something and reading that headline. It's like,
just a
I know that
quitter.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was gonna see if you remembered, Finn. Yeah, the headline is just
Oh,
a
yeah.
quitter.
Yeah, I found it. I found the article. You had listed the article in the book, and I was
Yeah.
like, I went and looked it up and took a screen grab of it. It was pretty ripe stuff.
Yeah. I think of most Arcadia authors. I list my sources almost more than anybody. You look at the back of my book, there's like pages of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, are they have they retired the History Press as an imprint, or are they still using that?
I think they're still using it. I hadn't
Okay.
heard anything different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Oregon Moonshine is no, actually it's not. Eccentric Tales is History Press. Oregon
Okay.
Moonshine is their American Palate series.
Oh.
Because you can drink it, I guess. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think
You
it's
might
more
not
like a
want
crime
to.
story. Right. Yeah. There's some. I have a whole chapter in this book called what is it? Death. This shot will kill you. All about people who got in trouble drinking moonshine. They either get their leg would freeze up. They called it Jake leg
Mm.
because especially because people drink instead of alcohol this Jamaican something extract.
Jamaica
called-
ginger, yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
make you seize
I
up.
read about that.
There's old blues songs about it. Like
Yeah.
I got that Jake leg.
There's a somebody wrote a book, and I listened to it as an audiobook about the prohibition agents making denatured alcohol progressively more and more toxic to
Oh
the
yeah,
point because people were like well, I mean, Bruce, you know this obviously, but people were like literally taking canned heat, that jellied alcohol
Yeah.
stuff, and squeezing the orange crap out of it and drinking that. And
yeah.
Well, and what's funny? This just came to mind. It's like, people make fun of druggies, and it's like, do you have any idea what they did to get alcohol back in? There was a whole new level of desperation at one point.
When you make something illegal, it does not go away.
No.
No,
It just
no.
becomes more dangerous.
Prohibition has I think been the key example in history that has shown us that making something illegal just doesn't work, especially when you gave the people time to prepare. And nothing changed.
Hey, everybody, I have a public service announcement to make. I have just discovered that Oregon Moonshine, Bootleggers, Busts, and Brawls, the American Palate book by Mr. Bruce Haney, 5 ratings of 5 stars average, by the way, is currently on sale for $11.25. Now, as a fellow History Press author, I can confirm that that is cheaper than I can buy copies of my book wholesale. So, I mean, what's not to love here?
Do yourself a favor and get a copy.
I thought I already had a copy of this, but I see that I have not bought it yet, so I'm rectifying that right now. Because Bruce, you just told me a story that I didn't recognize, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get
Signed.
that on its way. Oh,
I need
this.
I need all of my book. Like Finn, I need to get the book you gave me signed. I need to get all my books signed by everybody. My collection shall be valuable.
That's right. By golly. Is this thing working? Oh, it's sending me an OTP because I don't usually surf the net. 504608.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how cool it is that we all get to do this and how casually we're just doing this. And then I think about the comment that we had just gotten on YouTube about the on the Peter Dibble one where this guy's like, "Yeah, I get to see all my favorite like Oregon historian people crossover." I'm like, "That's cool. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
thought we are the Avengers of the Oregon academic community."
Fantastic Four right here.
Oh,
Uh,
All
well,
right.
that's very frustrating. My screen has just decided to freeze up here. So anyway, oh, there it is. Yes, it is on its way. Excellent. Hey.
Cool,
Perfect.
cool.
I know we're running short on time, but there are still a couple more questions that I have anyway. Um, speaking of selling, how well do your books do? I'm curious.
They vary. Eccentric Tales actually sells the best. Um, and that's because I have that built-in audience with the Boring Oregon History group.
Right.
Yeah, if you
And
live in Boring and you don't have a copy of that book, what is wrong with you?
yeah, well, not all, 8,000 people have it,
Yeah.
but a good number do. And also, I got interviewed and did the boxing story on KGW.
mm.
Ah,
And they air that thing once a year, and once a year, uptick in sales. So that's my big one. I always
sweet.
thought Moonshine would be the biggest because it's, not such a small area, but it does well.
A follow-up question: when are you sharing the your millions with the network?
Yeah. When I
Wah,
find
wah.
when I find them,
Where's that
It's like,
big donation, Bruce?
oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I want my own wing.
yeah,
Actually, I guess if you're making the donation, it would be you the one who wants your own wing.
right.
Well, I think my final question, since I'm looking over and I think we've pretty much, at least on my end, kind of covered everything. So who or what is your inspiration for your writing style
Oh,
or storytelling style? Because I always talk about
yeah, that,
Aaron Mahnke's work, lore,
yeah,
that's always been kind of my inspiration for how I do things. It's not a carbon copy, but
yeah,
I've definitely, listened to it long enough to where I kind of emulated that quite a bit.
yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. I read a lot. Like the authors I read the most are Stephen King, David Sedaris, and John Waters. Uh,
That is quite a combination.
yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I just write what pleases me, and I think I have a pop culture sensibility, and I try. I'm looking for not used to in the old days used to call it exploitation.
Mm,
Would be moments that are exciting, like
yeah.
in like a exploitation movie in the '70s. Car explosion is exploitation. It's a bad word now, but I always look for the little exciting moments, and I'm trying to navigate to them and through them to the next one.
Mm,
That's
That's
awesome.
yeah. Maybe
And
I'm kind of part of the MTV generation too, where
yeah.
like the quick cutting and like I'm
yeah,
trying to get to
yeah.
the fun moments.
Yeah, and follow-up question to that, what is your favorite Stephen King story? As a fan myself, I'm curious.
It's either it or The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, I'm really gonna regret asking this question because I'm afraid of the answer.
yeah.
Which version of The Shining is your favorite, movie-wise?
It's Kubrick's.
Mm.
Uh,
The 97
get
version,
out!
the 97 version, if they hired a different kid or maybe wrote the character better, it'd work. You know,
See, I
that
love the
kid is rough.
miniseries. I love the miniseries. Yeah, I'm not saying that uh 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 Cortland Mead uh
I like him in other things. He's fine in other things. He's not good as uh, what's the kid's name? Danny. He's not a
yeah,
good Danny
I
Torrance.
like I like Steven Weber
Hmm.
as Jack Torrance. I absolutely love I loved how, and of course there's the running joke that obviously King did not like the Kubrick version,
No.
and he did the miniseries as his own rendition. And I love how it builds story. I love the atmosphere, the vibe. Honestly, the woman in that tub was a lot more
Yeah.
scary.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I had nightmares. Well, not nightmares.
Yeah.
I would get up in the middle of the night as a kid and I would edge towards the bathroom, and we had frosted sliding glass doors
Oh,
on our tub. So I'm just like inching them open before I go pee. And of course, there's never nothing there, but as a kid, you don't understand that.
mhm.
So yeah, that scared me. And I don't know. I just loved the whole vibe of it. The music track was amazing. And yeah, I'll admit it's not perfect. Like you said, there are some choices that could have been made better, but I really think they built the relationship between Jack and Danny really well. And Steven Weber uh as an actor was just he was really good, really terrifying at times too.
Yeah. And it's an actual progression. You
Yes.
know, Jack Nicholson's crazy, scene one,
Yeah.
Mhm.
where, you know, in the 97 version, it builds. You
Yeah.
see him lose his humanity.
Yeah, and I think that was the big like I'm not saying that Kubrick's version as a movie is good. As
Yeah.
a Shining story, it falls short. Because yeah, Nicholson is a great actor, but he's kind of typecast as crazy
Mhm.
in like so much that he does. Like, right down the fact that he plays the Joker in Batman. He's the anger man. I think he's the anger management dude in uh is it anger management or happy
The
Gilmore?
movie Anger Management,
And then,
yes.
yeah, anger management.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, um, so yeah, he's already kind of got that vibe of crazy.
Mhm.
So like it doesn't really work as much. Although I do love watching it for like the culture at the time, like Wendy just
Yeah.
smoking that cigar down to the
Mhm.
down to the nub. So
I do love it. Because if you would have asked what my top five horror movies are, not just the first one, we would eventually get to the Kubrick Shining.
okay, I got to know
Yeah.
what are your top five?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead 2, The Shining, and the fifth one would be hard. Maybe the Changeling.
Okay,
Like, yeah, that one's really good. There's a really, those old ghost movies, they'll have like one good moment,
Yeah.
but that moment is better than like any other movie you've seen.
Hmm.
And the Changeling has just the creepiest moment in it. That I won't spoil.
you know what's fun is I think because obviously definitely want you back again. I think we found one of our October guest slots
All
because
right,
we
good,
can
Oh
good.
yeah.
just sit here and talk horror stuff. Oh,
We,
no, I'm
we,
really
we
Do
gotta
a
all get
31
like
for 31.
we gotta all get those filters with different on-screen monsters. Like one of us can be Nosferatu, one of us can be
yes.
Count
Yeah.
Chocula. You know, I wonder if Count Von Count is available.
That gives me a
That's
great.
right.
Yeah, I need to decorate my background for holiday stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, unfortunately, we are running a little over on time. So, does anybody else have anything left for Bruce? Enigmatic silence. Perfect. I love
Yeah,
that.
we're saving
For
it up for
podcasting.
Halloween season.
Yep.
All righty. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on. This was probably the funniest episode we have done so far, and I don't honestly know how we're gonna really top it, but I guess we'll just make an honest effort.
Brad.
Right on.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This episode was brought to you by the Oregon Voices Network, a historical podcast network that brings you amazing shows like Welcome to Oregon, a Oregon history and lore podcast, Offbeat Oregon, and the Penny Dreadful Story Hour. Our website is now updated to reflect all of these wonderful shows. So if you want one source for all of our content, social links like our Facebook group, page, and Discord, occasional articles, a store supplied by local artists, and more, check out www.oregonvoices.net. Also, if you love our work, you should definitely seriously consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/Oregon Voices Network. The money goes towards all of our projects and helps us pay for things like software, assets, and more. If you're listening to the audio version of this show, you can find more of our work on YouTube at youtube.com/Oregon Voices Network. Gentlemen, where can people find you and your works?
I am on most social media platforms at the Spirit of PDX.
And I'm at Finn at pulp-lit.com, and I'm going to try and re-engage on Facebook, I guess. But you should be able to find me with I can't remember what my Facebook address is. It's probably like, it's a funny story actually, which we don't have time for, but I tried to get it offbeat-Oregon at Facebook, and they wouldn't let me have it because they thought it was like beat off Oregon. And then it was, I finally figured out that was what the problem was. We're like, oh, for crying out.
You get a lot of clicks that way.
Yeah, that's going to be our next network project.
But I am going to start doing my Facebook duty again because it needs to be a place that people can go to, even though they've shut down all organic reach.
Yeah,
let's not get into that. Sorry, I'm holding up the outro here.
No, that's fine. That seems to be the outro to every episode is the controversy of Facebook. I love it. All right, Bruce, plug all your stuff.
I'm on, the aging. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all the aging social medias. And just Google Bruce Haney books. You'll find my books wherever you like to buy books from. Oh, wait, one last thing. June 21st, I'll be in Aurora. I'm doing the moonshine presentation at their historical society.
Right, you invited me to that. What day is that?
It's Saturday.
Saturday. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I should make it. It's always hard with an 8 to 4 job that I can't really be like, hey, I've got to take like several days off because I have other engagements that don't pay me for. So
maybe we can do a live remote.
That would be cool.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. From myself and the crew, later.
Cheers.
Bye.